Well, welcome everyone. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Lovely to see all your faces. Welcome to this paper learning lunch. I've had to read the title of it for myself so I could remember. Top tips on the process of rehearsing and workshopping online in our bubbles. So I know we're all, now here we are in level 2. I'm sure, like me, you've all been enjoying the process of getting back outside and interacting with people. My name is Lynne Cardy. I am the Associate Director of Auckland Theatre Company. And this week, our company returned to the office. I haven't been there yet. I'm only allowed to go in my bubble, which is a Wednesday and Thursday bubble. But I'm really excited to see how it has been for people to start to work together in a physical space. We even have some actors rehearsing in one of our studios this week, which has been, feels like a big step for us. It's really exciting. But over the course of the last 7 weeks, a lot of us have been working in this online space and engaging in what we normally do, but in a very different way. And so today's learning lunch is really all about coming together to talk about some of the experiences that we've had engaging with young people and with children in the work that we do online, and sharing what's been working about that, what's been tough about that, and just people's experience generally. So that's what we're here to do today. And it's great to have you all here, and I'm sure we'll have some more guests probably joining us as the hour goes on. We think we're here for an hour or so. It might go a little bit longer. We'll see how it goes. But we brought together a great panel, and so I'm really excited to welcome our panel today. We have Sam Scott, the Artistic Director of Massive Company here. We have Juliet Cottrell, who is a drama educator from the Hawke's Bay. Juliet works with the Hawke's Bay Youth Theatre and also works in schools supporting teachers with drama. And we have Sacha Copland, who is the Artistic Director of the Java Dance Theatre as well. So 3 amazing panellists coming together to share our stories with us today, their stories with us today. And the way this is going to work is I'm going to invite each of the panellists to speak just for about 10 minutes or so on what they've been discovering in recent times with online engagement. And then we're just going to throw the floor open for your questions, conversations, ideas, story sharing, anything that you want to bring to this learning lunch. How does that sound? Okay? Yeah, cool. And luckily Bridget's here to administrate the whole thing, and there is a handy dandy little reaction button down there on the Zoom, for those of you who've been using Zoom a lot, which you can use to get our attention when you need to, or when we open the floor up, okay? So we're just going to kick off. I'm just going to invite Sam Scott from Massive Company just to have tell us about her recent experience working online. Over to you, Sam, and I'm just going to let the dog out of the bedroom. Thanks.
Kia ora koutou katoa, everyone. Lovely to see you, some of whom I haven't seen for ages, so it's lovely that this brings us together. Yeah, so Massive Theatre Company, we were working with, we were already in the, I think one of the benefits of this has been having a company. I've really kind of seen that through this time. And right from the beginning, we worked out that connection, engagement, and creative curiosity were the 3 things that would kind of lead us in terms of our work. We had a number of things already happening, so we sort of switched those pretty quickly to online. So the things that we had already happening was Massive Nui Ensemble, which is our emerging artist company for 14, 15 to 25-year-olds. So that had just done, we tend to meet with them 5 Saturdays through a term, every 2nd Saturday for a whole day. And then usually they have a 6-day intensive with a public showing at the end of it. And that kind of goes on. Most of the people that are in Massive Nui Ensemble stay with us for quite a long time, often anywhere from a year to 5 years. So a lot of the people that often go through our company and go into the industry have come through Massive Nui Ensemble, but equally we also have people who come in and are involved with us who don't go on into the industry. So just to give it a bit of context. So we pretty much switched over straight away really into doing this. And we actually did our intensive online. So we had 5 days really early on in lockdown where we worked with them every day for 5 days solid from 10 till 5 in the afternoon. What we worked out with them really quickly was we kind of changed the name from MNE Intensive to MNE Lab, because we wanted to kind of make more of a lab the focus, and we decided that exploration and discovery were kind of going to be our 2 words that would lead us. So we were going to sort of go through this together because it was new for all of us as such. But and so that kaupapa for that time really worked, I think, because we sort of helped lead us as well as everything else that we already have in place and how we understand ourselves as Massive. I was co-tutoring with Wesley Dowdall, and also I had Ali Bruce as one of our trainee tutors and Vila Lamanu as well, just so to give it context. And there was 27 Massive Nui Ensemble people in that age group. Not all of them could come all the time because some were at university and the university hadn't changed their times. So but most of the time we'd have on average about 22 people with us. What worked out really quickly that we wanted it to be very playful and lots of fun. So we worked out really quickly in the first session what didn't make it playful and fun. But we also kept online a lot of the things that we would do. So we just adapted a lot of our work, as it were, to this. So we'd always start with a warm-up and a physical stuff. It was great using Zoom with the shared screen, so we could just pump music into their places rather than me holding up a speaker or something like that. So I can really recommend this platform. It's a great one to work with. We worked quite fast. We found that working and spending ages around anything was not great, because so we sort of got them working really fast. We made a thing that restriction was liberating. So we said, you know, wherever you are, whatever space you've got, whoever else is in your household, we'll work with that. We're not going to ask you to kind of have great huge spaces or anything like that, and we'll work with you. And that seemed to go very well. I mean, essentially we had so much fun, and we had a whole lot of ways of instigating that. So we had themes. So we would set up what each day would be. So sometimes it was headgear. Another day it was kind of eyes. Another day it was lower facial. Other times it was hair. And so every time we'd turn up on the platform every day, we'd come in that stuff. And it was sort of interesting to see. And we also were already in teams. That's something we often have at Massive. And so there were points. So anyone who was early, and I always had a magic number for how many people the first of that magic number, which they didn't know, would turn up on screen, would get points for their team. And then there'd also be extra points for things like, you know, what they looked like, and if there was a kind of ongoing theme amongst them or something like that. So we sort of just kept it really playful all the time. And I was dressing up, and so was Wesley, and I'd post pictures on Facebook beforehand of some of the things I was doing. And yeah, so we kept it really playful. We kept them very involved in it. So feedback about what was and what wasn't working, and what they needed. So, you know, we sort of tried a short lunchtime, and then it worked out, no, it was good to have the hour for the lunchtime so they could just go and decompress and run around and all of that stuff. We'd have really kind of wonderful discussions about minutiae. So like one of the, we'd sort of always talk about all the food we were eating. So that became a real thing about, you know, and we really got into that a lot together about what had we had for lunch, what did we have for breakfast. We also did things like got them to go and show us a window on their world. So we'd get them, we always connect in and connect out at the end of all our sessions anyhow, generally. And so some parts of our connecting in was things like take us to a window or a doorway that you want us to see out of, so that we sort of could share as well things about where they were, because some of them were away from where they normally were. If they weren't, you know, they might be staying with a boyfriend's family or something like that up north or whatever. So, and then when it came to the making and devising and making work, we just kind of kept being inspired by the things around us, but like in a massive way, the things that were sort of most central to us. But that's how Brilliant Things came up, Brilliant Things That Make Me Happy. So some of you might have seen some of the short films that we made as a result of that, and a few other things that came from another provocation, which was a time capsule of now, and the other provocation was My Bed, My Universe. So we were sort of working in a very massive way, but just, and really utilizing this. So we sort of, when we were really exploring when we were making work, the relationship to the camera. And because we sort of work with complicité a lot anyhow, the connection between actors and between audience, then we just sort of transferred that to the camera. So they had lots of fun exploring that relationship, because we've worked out it was pretty unsatisfying them just standing up in their room and doing something. It was like sometimes we couldn't see them or hear them or whatever. So it's like, no, let's find you know, ways that this relationship here. Sorry, I had my clock on. I've got 1 more minute. So there's that. The other things, just really quickly to let you know what else we put on. So the Director's Lab, which is something we do, we transferred that really easily. We call those big picture conversations. I started a new group for our seniors, so senior practitioners, and these are people working not just around New Zealand, but also over the world, like Beulah Koale, who's in Hawaii. So we started this thing called Curious Conversations with Massive, and they decided they wanted to work on writing projects. So that's still going, and we're working on sort of them writing and starting to play with that. And I suspect that will keep going way beyond this. So it's been a really kind of great silver lining of a new initiative. I had quite a few things like this with teachers. So just talking with teachers again about what we were doing. That was pretty early on, because some of them were looking a bit stunned mullet and like, what on earth? You know, the first time I asked them how they were going creatively, they just were sort of quite downtrodden. So I had 3 teachers forums for any teachers around New Zealand. I've also been doing one-on-ones with people, so just whatever people want to discuss about. So some of that's with company members about particular projects or things, and others it's just about sort of using this opportunity to discuss how people want to stay creatively curious or anything. I also got in touch with lots of our international collaborators, and we've had lots of kind of interesting discussions around that. So people we've done things with over the years. And I also did some in-school forums with past collaborations. So we were offering our packages of past shows that teachers could utilize with their students, and then I'd come on board and talk to their classrooms, to the students, about unpacking that show with a whole class of people. And then something else I've just done, and I just came off now, was working with other companies. So just done a forum, and that was the second one of, well, obviously of 2, with Northland Youth Theatre tutors, about working with them about sort of professional development for them. That's sort of to do with a Northland project, because we work in Northland a lot. So looking at what things, I was meant to be meeting with them in person, doing a residency in Whangarei, couldn't do that, so we just put it online. That's me.
Wow, what a it sounds like you've really, it sounds like you've really grasped the mantle of adapting to the situation to you know, really do some terrific stuff. Do you think you will keep using this for this platform?
I think, yeah, I think we will to some extent. I certainly think I mean, one of the, you know, sort of aside from that, but Carrie Ray, our general manager, and I, we were talking the other day about what is it about this period of time that we want to keep, you know, from everything, from sort of how it's been for us in terms of working from home and then being in the office together. So we're still unpacking that a bit, but I certainly think, you know, there are things around it all, Lynne, that I'm really keen to sort of keep. I really enjoyed, there was something about the decompression of it all that I found. So I loved everything we were doing. I felt very connected and very engaged, no more so than I always do, but surprisingly kind of wonderfully so. And I was so thrilled with our rangatahi at Massive Nui Ensemble. I just can't begin to say how impressed I was by how they worked in this time. Do you know what I mean? Like their tenacity, their resilience, their kind of grappling with it, them running with it, them sort of continuing to want to sort of explore what it was. It was incredibly uplifting. After I came away from the, you know, the lab, the intensive of the 5 days, I just felt like I felt incredibly uplifted by them. So I think what we'll probably do around that stuff is look at some of the filming aspects of things. I mean, Jessie, who put those videos together, we work with her normally in relationship to shows, but I think we're going to start to look at what other aspect of that we can use in the work as well.
How terrific. That's so exciting. I'm sure that other people are, your brains are fizzing with questions and things you want to talk about, jumping off from what Sam's experienced. But shall we just now have a quick chat with Juliet and hear about what she's been up to as well? Is that okay with everyone? Are you banking things? Is that good to do that? Because it'd be great to hear from you, Juliet, about your experiences and what you've been doing in the Hawke's Bay. Thanks, Sam, and thanks, Juliet.
Thanks, Lynne. Thanks, Sam. That was fantastic. And just to say that Habit Hawke's Bay Youth Theatre have been watching the work that your rangatahi have been doing as well. So great work. So we work with students from age 7 all the way up to 19. Wow. And when this happened, I must admit, we just went, well, that's our world over. You can't do this stuff online, forget it. And kind of went into a cave for about 2 days thinking, well, we can't do this. And slowly but surely watched colleagues from around the world basically start to come out of those caves and shells and start to work with students online. So we owed some classes to students because it was the end, wasn't quite the end of term, and parents had paid for the whole term, and we needed to find a good viable answer that was going to satisfy students and parents. So we jumped online straight away and we delivered every single class online. We had no idea what we were doing really, but managed to do something. And this feedback started to come back from parents saying things like, thank you so much. Thank you so much for keeping our children engaged creatively, because that was the key. There was so many emotions going around everybody, but they wanted their children to stay in touch with us and stay communicating. So that was fantastic. Since then, we've sort of divided things up into, we've got Habit, the Hawke's Bay Youth Theatre, and that has 3 groups. And then we've actually put our younger classes to sleep, the classes, not the children. And we're running a couple of special little short courses with them. And what we wanted to do there was just not put any financial pressure on any parents to have to pay for classes that they weren't really satisfied with, or that weren't delivering a face-to-face product. And that's had a lovely take up by those kids who are drama kids and need that connection. So they, the 7 to 10-year-olds basically have enrolled in either a poetry, 3 weeks of funny giggle poetry, we're calling it. And every little session is just a session in itself, and we're just looking at one poem, and we're playing with voices, and we're playing with how does the poem sound, how does it move, so that we move and we talk, and that's lovely. And then there's another group of around about 10, 11, 12-year-olds who we're working with scripts, a different script. The script is sent to them a week before, and that's the script we work with. So that's just short courses that that we're working with the younger children. Then we've got with Habit, with the Hawke's Bay Youth Theatre. The problem with that is they've been commissioned to do a play for the Hawke's Bay Arts Festival. So the directors, Peter Cottrell and Champa Makiel, who are the movement director and director, co-directing, are going, no, we have to keep rehearsing. So we have managed to rehearse Every Man online, well, they have. They send them off into breakout rooms. They're completely organised before every session. Champa does a half-hour warm-up at the very beginning. They're in their bedrooms, they're in their lounge rooms, as Sam said, they're wherever they need to be to make it work. And then they go through an hour and a half of rehearsing, and it's, you know, we've got the usual connectivity problems, we've got issues with students sometimes in their pajamas, but we've now set out some guidelines for them and how they need to come to rehearsal, and it's similar to how we want them to come to rehearsal anyway, dressed, having eaten before or after, not during. And so they're fantastic, as Sam said. It's just embracing them as a rangatahi as they are, and they bring to it what they need to bring. So that's fabulous. I'm directing a play called Bus Town, and what's happened with that group has been sensational. And one of the lovely surprises about that is the ownership they're bringing to the play. So we're still rehearsing, and last week we connected with the playwright Lachlan Philpott, who came and zoomed in on us from Australia, from Melbourne, and answered a whole lot of questions that the kids had about the play. And I noticed a change in the way they came to rehearsal last night on Zoom. They were so much more switched on because they'd had a discussion with the playwright. The playwright knew who they were, and he now wants to come and see them perform that play in November, and said to them on the Zoom, how about we workshop a sequel together? And so these kids are just so excited that they're part of this world, and that would not have happened. I wouldn't have connected them with Lachlan in that way. So that's very, very exciting. The other thing I've asked them to do, normally we take these fabulous portraits, you know, a great professional photo of each group, but of course we haven't been able to do that. So I've relied on them to do that, and I haven't put that one out there yet because I've asked them to do it in character. So they're now taking on some design aspects of the show themselves, and they're creating what they think their character looks like. So that's going to be their portrait photo, which will be very, very exciting. Then we've got some year 7s and 8s, 17 of them, trying to rehearse a play, ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, online, send them into breakout rooms. It's actually, last week it was a disaster because we've got the same students who have got some, you know, various different learning challenges, shall we say, learning and behaviour challenges. They bring those to the Zoom. They are literally, you know, spinning around on their chairs, or they're lying on the floor. It gets darker and darker, and you can see them getting under the covers of their bed. There's all the same issues come to the Zoom that come to the drama space or the rehearsal space. So I'm not feeling all that confident with that one at the moment, but we'll get there, and it won't be long before we actually can be in person again. But as Sam said, it's about connection and engagement at this stage for us. And not only the creativity but the well-being, and I know that there's so many of those students need this weekly dose, and I suppose in a way we're being a little bit ambitious in that we think we can still continue to rehearse these plays, but we're giving it a go, and for the most part it's working. We really are just looking at small scenes, focusing on line learning, focusing on questions about the text, really honing in on the text for each of those plays. The other little thing I wanted to mention too was that we'd started an international global digital theatre company that spans the UK, Canada, Abu Dhabi and China and New Zealand. It came from the World Arts Education Conference in Frankfurt that I went to last year. And we said, wouldn't it be amazing if we could do some theatre online with each other across countries? Before we knew what was going to be happening here. But it relied on us being in person with our students. So the idea of the project is that somebody in one of the countries does a workshop with their students. They film it, send it to the next country, and the kids in the next country respond to it. And it's started. We created about 3 pieces of work, and the idea was that it would go for about 6 months, and an online performance would then be happen. It would be filmed, it wouldn't be live. And we were to present that at IDEA in Beijing in July, which of course isn't happening anymore. The first country, so what we watched was, it was like the virus, each country closing down, and we were no longer able to continue this project. However, next week is World, what is it called? International Arts Education Week. And we're, the Pretzel facilitators around the world are going to be presenting a webinar next week. Unfortunately, New Zealand got the short straw and I have to present at 12:30 a.m, but that's all right. That'll be okay. It's going to be recorded anyway, and we'll share some of the workshops that we were doing. Sorry, I've probably prattled on for too long. Back to you, Lynne.
No, that's fascinating. Thanks so much, Juliet. I mean, I think it's just so interesting that you talk about so many opportunities that have actually arisen out of this situation. And I think what you were talking to at the end there around these international exchanges and the opportunity for international exchange on this platform is actually pretty amazing and really quite limitless, I suppose, once you start taking the learnings and the makings that you're all discovering now and take them into that exchange space. And how wonderful to be able to connect with a playwright in Australia directly for your cast, to meet that person and to have that to be such a boost. I mean, that makes me think, well, that's what we should be doing all the time.
Absolutely.
And I think that those are the, it's almost like the hurdles are falling over, isn't it? And on one level, and I think that's really exciting. So it's fantastic to hear that. I've got a question I'm desperate to ask you later about working with 7-year-olds, but I'm going to hold it in. I'm holding it in because I love to pass over now to Sacha. I don't know about you, Sacha, whether you've also been discovering new opportunities or if it's a different landscape for you, but it'd be great to hear about what you've been up to in this space.
Great, thanks, Lynne. Kia ora koutou. I'm Sacha Copland and I'm the Artistic Director of Java Dance Theatre. We're a touring company. We make work for young people as well as for adults. And our work is very live, so it's usually based on live music, live dance, sensory immersion. So for us it was quite interesting to think about going online, particularly because I don't love it. I have to just admit that. I really love full bodily being in the room with everyone, and I love watching theatre that way. And dance, it's really super practical to take a dance class or to teach kids like a dance, you know, a route learn kind of dance where they copy. It's very practical in that way. But for me, that's great, but it also doesn't give you some of the things that dance and music do give you, which is a little bit more holistic. It's about like inviting the wider space and feeling really three-dimensional. So we've spent this period actually probably a little bit more focused on the artists than usual. So normally we're very audience focused, but yeah, I thought it was kind of a good opportunity to focus on the artists. And the first thing I thought about was, what do people need? And the first things came up were that dancers need to dance and musicians need to play music. And sometimes they need a reason to do that. And for me, it was really important that everyone didn't have to sort of drag up their own motivation all the time. So I thought, I'm going to design something that gives them a reason to dance and play music and also has the potential to expand their practice. So we organised basically a matchmaking service where we had musicians and dancers, and I just paired them up one-on-one over Zoom. And the reason for one-on-one was that I felt like a lot of people were missing creative intimacy, which, you know, is hard to get over this forum. So I thought, well, if we pair them up one by one, it'll be simple and also have the opportunity for intimacy. And sound and dance means actually, particularly the dancers, could get totally lost in the space. They didn't need to stay looking at the screen the whole time. They could get lost in the sound and engage with a more, I guess, 3D interaction with the space, which is really important, and kind of getting lost in a sensory world. And for the musicians and the dancers, we basically just gave the provocation initially that they just needed to respond to each other so that we could keep thinking about that connection. And that could be visual with the musician watching the dancer, but also just by hearing the sounds. And we paired up strangers as well as people who knew each other. So I basically put everyone's names in a hat, or one hat for musicians, one hat for dancers, and pulled them out each day that we did it. And we started with just 10 artists, so we're basically Java and a few extras. But we actually just ended up opening it up. It was all pretty much for professionals, but I started to become concerned about how emerging artists were doing at this time, because I think it's really easy if you've already got something set up to adapt it. It's very easy if you've got your own practice and your own networks and your own support networks to practice. Whereas if you've just graduated, say, dance school at the end of last year, you might not have those set up very strongly, so it's very hard to keep practicing. So yeah, we really opened it up and invited a whole lot of really recent graduates to be part of that. And we ended up doing 101 duets and having more than 50 artists involved. And yeah, and we had like a lot of New Zealanders, but also Australians, Singaporeans, South Koreans. We didn't have anyone from Europe because of the time difference. We just agreed that it was easier to keep it within that. But one really positive thing for me that came from it was that it was a more diverse group of artists, I think, than we'd normally work with. And one of the things I thought of initially was that keeping it simple technically was super important, so that we weren't going to cut people out because it was going to be too difficult. And everyone ended up videoing them, but we made that optional so that if people couldn't for some reason, they could still be part of it, because the first thing we wanted people to do was just practice together. And it meant quite a few dancers were involved, and some dancers I noticed who are super talented, but who, yeah, I know have mental health problems, and who maybe find it hard to work in a conventional setting, or come to rehearsal every day, or all those practical things that makes someone employable. But what I noticed was it was actually much easier to not cut people out for those reasons, which I have to say does give me a bit of grief. You know, I need people to turn up and to do the work, but I also think sometimes the reasons people don't are really complicated, and there's such huge barriers. So one really special thing for me was being able to open it up way more than usual and get artists who are super talented, who have something really interesting to say, who have movement in their bodies that is different to what you always see, to be able to practice and work with musicians they would probably never work with or never even meet. So that's something now I'm going to challenge myself in my practice to try and explore more, is to work with a more diverse range of people and find ways to do that, so that you have different processes that work around different people, so that you're not cutting people out, you know, for practical reasons. So yeah, that's kind of the main thing we've been doing. And we were going to be working with schools online, but now that we're level 2, we're automatically going to be working with them in person, which is great. So that's with using live music cues and pockets of music, and the students just respond to the different cues and do the different types of movement to each cue, but they can be played in any order. So it means that it's kind of like a game, so it's not too intimidating for students who haven't danced before, I guess. So yeah, those are kind of the main things that have come out of it for me. And I've now got footage and really good sound quality recordings of 101 duets. So we're putting together an edit, because I think it's partly really just because it's important that people are witnessed and that people feel valued, but we're also applying for funding to get everyone in the room, or all the Wellingtonians in a room together who did that, and that was ended up being 25 Wellington musicians and dancers, and we're going to make a live site-specific duet trail that we want to embed in the city. So yeah, that's been our focus. We haven't been working so directly with young people, but it's been a good time for building our artists for the next stage, which is working more practically with young people.
Wow, wonderful. Thanks, Sacha. I'm so excited about your 101 duets. I really want to see them. Does it, and I mean, I think it's really interesting that you say that, you know, it's actually been a platform that's been able to, it's enabled you to open up your practice and to actually make your practice more accessible to a wider range of artists. And that's really exciting. And I love I just imagined you sitting there with your hat, pulling out the names of the people and matchmaking them. Do you think that's a process that you could also trial with young people as well? I mean, I was thinking when you said your schools, I thought, oh, you're going to start matchmaking, you know, young participants from different schools together or something like that. But do you think that you would use some of these ideas working with young people as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only difference, I think with young people, if they were kind of, I don't know, 14 plus, you could probably do it by just literally introducing them and matchmaking them. I think if they got younger, you would probably need maybe a little facilitation. So you could matchmake people, but also have a facilitator there just to, you know, particularly for dance, just to get them started, because it can be intimidating to start.
Yeah.
But it's also, I mean, it's one of the most ancient things for a live musician to play and a dancer to dance to it. So I think it's not so hard probably to get even people who've never danced before and younger people to do it. It just might need some facilitation to get them going maybe for the first one. And then I think you could keep giving them matches and it would work quite well.
Cool, so it could be a good schools program then. The facilitation was coming from a teacher or, yeah.
Yeah, and I think the element of chance makes it super fun. So I think that's something that could carry into schools really well is, just that element of chance.
Absolutely, and I think that playful, fun quality is also something that Sam touched on as well, and that is really important to carry through, I think, when you're working in this way. So that's terrific. What an exciting kind of suite of projects you've been experimenting with, all three of you panelists. Thank you so much for sharing those. And I'm just going to open up now to just open it up to the rest of the room, I guess, for people to respond in any way to any of those things that you've heard, whether it's a question or if you just want to follow up with your own story. It'd be great to hear from people. Does anyone want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Oh, lovely. Rachel.
Hi, yeah, I'm Rachel Constantine. I'm a drama tutor with Tim Bray Youth Theatre.
Oh, great.
Hi, Tim. Yeah, so I've been teaching ages from 5 years to 10 years. Tim Bray Youth Theatre does teach up to, what is it, Tim? It's like 16-year-olds. So we do the whole age group. I focus on the younger children, and I was pleasantly surprised. I was really nervous to begin with, thinking this isn't going to work, because my kids are all so physical. And I realized, though, that when we got onto this platform, just how used they are to looking at a screen.
Right.
And they were just so relaxed using this format. Also, because they're in a home environment, they're really chilled, they feel safe. Most of them are in their bedrooms, which creates that environment, and they feel comfortable to explore their creativity. And the first task I set the kids after the first session with them all was to create a puppet. And we were in lockdown at this time, and obviously, and they were all so focused on this task. And they came back. I created a puppet as well. I haven't got it on me, actually. But anyway, I don't. We all created scenes with our puppets for the next couple of sessions, weekly sessions. And that was really successful. And then from then on, I actually continued to use props with most of my classes. So I would create scavenger hunts, and I would ask them to describe an object. Then I would ask them to create another object. So this isn't a bottle, it's a hearing machine, you know. So, and they all had their own time to present, which they really loved. They loved being the center of attention, and I'd enlarge their screen, and they really enjoyed that. With the younger group, younger kids from 5 to 7 years, I had to keep the sessions short. No more than 40 minutes was the max, and then I'd see their energies dissipate. And each task was, say, 5 minutes exercise, but it was really manageable. It was great. I had their focus, and they loved being on the screen. They loved showing me their houses, their pets, and some of the parents got involved. Which we didn't actually encourage, but I had a family of 4 coming to class one time. Mum, dad, little brother, and the cat. And I went along with it. This boy, it was his first session. So actually I had a few kids starting for the first time. They'd never done a class with me. And I was so surprised that they were so relaxed and so engaged and so confident. These new kids joining this format for the first time, it was actually easier for them for some reason than it is when, in the physical sense, coming into a classroom. They didn't feel as intimidated because they were in their safe environment, their little bubble. With the older kids, I encouraged them to begin writing, and they came up with monologues, and we usually devise productions throughout the year. So we've begun devising a show that we will be performing once we're back in class. And I suggested they come up with their characters. They've all come up with monologues or speeches. And some of the kids have been really, really focused, and I've been bombarded with emails, kids coming up with scenes. And the thing that I've learned, and I'll take forward actually, is with the older group, the students who are keen on writing, I think that even though we only have an hour's session a week, it's going to be really valuable to have a collaborative sort of Google Docs going on where kids can write their part in their scene. We can share that throughout the week, so that's going to be great fun. We've already started doing that, and they're really enjoying it. Yeah, it's been great. I've really loved it. There have been challenges, technical problems, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they go offline, they mute and all sorts of things, and you have to reintroduce them in class. A couple of students were in the waiting room for ages because I was sharing a document with the class and I couldn't see them in the waiting room. So you have to muddle your way through all of that sort of thing. But yeah.
So sorry, was that all? Did you use Zoom? Was Zoom your platform?
Yeah, we use Zoom, yeah.
Wonderful.
So it wasn't all plain sailing. And also the thing I noticed with Zoom is that there are certain children who need extra support, and they feel reluctant to join in with discussions. You have to be really aware of that student and make sure that and focus on them a little more, and they can actually just stay quiet. And I've had a couple of children just exit the meeting, and I've followed it up with parents to find out why they left the meeting. Sometimes they were just hungry. It was dinner time. They hadn't eaten, and they could smell the quinoa coming from the kitchen. But at one particular student hadn't had a turn speaking, and I think she just got sick of waiting, and she just left the meeting. It depends on the size of the class. when you have to take turns going through each student, that can be challenging.
I can completely relate to exiting a meeting and getting to peak Zoom, you know, and I think that does happen. And I think that happens in class, doesn't it? I mean, sometimes people, regardless of what age, just kind of clock out a bit. People get tired, people need to move on. But I think that's fascinating what you've discovered there. And I'm fascinated about your 5-year-olds. And I think that's wonderful that they were including their family in the cat. You know, I think there's something really wonderful about that, actually.
Yeah, there have been a lot of pets in class. My dog actually has featured a lot. Yeah, it was fab because all of my students were always saying to me, oh, please, can you bring your dog into class, please? And I finally said, I can bring Eddie to class. Here he is.
Well, there's something that really connects directly to the children's home and their family, and the fact that they can share that and be in that and make that part of what they're doing. I think that's a wonderful key. It's terrific. Is there anyone else who wants to pick up on any of the things that we've been talking about? Let's say Karen. Hi, Karen. Oh, we can't hear you. Oh, yeah.
Hi, everyone. Hey, no, thank you. I just wanted to briefly kind of say what I got out of those 3 speakers, which was really great. And partly because a little bit similar to Sacha, I've been a little bit bah humbug. Why would you want to do screens? We're trying to get everyone off their screens, you know, that sort of but I just thought there were a couple of things that jumped out from your sharing that I thought would be really good to take forward once we are back in the rehearsal room. One was very much that international collaboration that Juliet spoke about. I think that's a really wonderful opportunity to do much to sort of open up that idea, and Sacha, you were saying as well, that whole idea of connecting with people in other countries, and I think this is definitely something that could continue. I loved what you were saying, Sacha, about the increase in diversity, and in particular dealing with people that have mental health issues and things like I've found different students or young people that just can't get to rehearsal on time and things like that. I've been doing Zoom classes with isolated elderly over this, which has been crazy, but incredibly rewarding, and very much that was what we were working on, with the connection, engagement, well-being. And that was a transference from my usual regular classes with a group of elderly onto Zoom, but it's really sort of, there are some people that it's worked for better, so I think that's something that would be really great to look at. I'm really curious about what you're saying, Sacha, about this just kind of really working for some people. And I think, and the third thing really was when you started to talk about the connecting classes with other people around New Zealand, because I often have students at Victoria who are like, I really want to do the massive classes, you know, and it's the tyranny of distance within New Zealand that makes it really challenging unless they come to Auckland. So I just wanted to sort of summarise that for me, it was really great to kind of get when we do go back to our normal sort of world, I think there are opportunities that have come out of this that we can continue to use and explore in a creative way. So thank you. It's, I'm a less bar humbug about it all.
Fantastic. I think there's a few people who are less bar humbug. Anyone else want to jump in? Something that you might be thinking about, or a question? Yeah, Tahi.
So yeah, again, relishing the conversation and hearing all the different ways that are coming up that people have engaged with online. And I too have adjusted a program that's been face-to-face with Mixit, and then moved that onto an online context. And that came with some great challenges, but it was also opened up access a lot more than face-to-face can do. So that's been really great. What's come to light in that sector, so I guess the resettled persons sector, is kind of the equality of device, which is really varied. So trying to translate Zoom and phone, and I guess that's across sectors as well. the equality of space. So some of our participants working in spaces where they are not comfortable with sharing their household, so they're working audio space rather than visual space, participants sharing devices, all of that kind of thing's been great and again, hearing you say, we approached it similarly, this is something we're investigating together. They were really co-designers of what that program might look like, and we were able to be much more regular with our contact and also much more adaptable to when that contact happened, which was a real advantage. It cut down our travel time because we work across Auckland, so we're able to reach nationally a bit more, which was also really cool. I'm quite interested in hearing from those of you who have really been stretching the bounds of Zoom, what little kind of jewels of discovery you've found, whether it's with sound and how to best use that. Sam, you said that you'd made sound work really well for you. We're still sort of meeting some challenges with that. So yeah, what little jewels have you discovered with this Zoom, and also perhaps some of the challenges of Zoom, or where the gaps are, where we could share with our tech guys and gals to keep making this work for artists in this way, so that we can work in the co-design of face-to-face and online as we move forward.
Yeah, Sacha.
Yeah, I have to admit we had to totally cheat the sound and dance link-ups afterwards. So it's cool that the dance is responding in the moment to the music, but you know, if you clap on Zoom, the other person hears it like a whole beat out.
Yeah.
So if you really want it to sync, we just got the dancers to record the video, the musicians to record nice quality audio with a microphone, and then we just synced them up afterwards in terms of something that you might show. But in the moment, it's all good. But yeah, that's how we got around one technical difficulty.
Yeah, Juliet.
So for us, it really has been quite a lot of trial and error. And the things that I've discovered, particularly with young people, is the device quality has been a problem. And trying to get them to be still when their mic is on, it's a huge thing. And people have just, they're playing with papers or they're playing with whatever. And just getting them into patterns and routines of having mics off when they're not speaking, which is really difficult if you're rehearsing a scene, but just little things like that. Having really clear guidelines and etiquette have really, really helped us. Also, having someone in the Zoom at first who is just controlling everything technically, like Bridget is doing at the moment, particularly with young people. I mean, the power you've got to mute young people is sensational. I'm a teacher of 35 years, and this is the first time I've ever been able to mute a child. It's wonderful. But not that I'm saying that that's a standard thing you should do, but having that person there helping while you're teaching or you're facilitating, having somebody else bringing people into the meeting, etc. I bring them in, because it's a key thing to have. That's it.
And Juliet, how did you resource that? Was that just someone from another teacher from your team, or
another teacher from the team? Yeah. Particularly if one of your directors, like your husband director, is a little bit technically challenged. I often have to come in and sit there and just manage people. Every now and then I'll get a text saying, I've lost them all, can you come and find them again? Because he's gone and joined a breakout room and you can't find them. So yeah. It's hard to resource that. Although I must say, Drama New Zealand they've put a lot of money into, or time and money into this Reaching the Edges program that they've been doing, and we've actually been able to fund people to manage and facilitate workshops, which has been fantastic.
Can you just say a little bit more about that Reaching the Edges program and what that's about?
So that Drama New Zealand received some funding, pre-lockdown for something called Reaching the Edges, which was about getting to the regional members of Drama New Zealand across New Zealand, because a lot of workshops and things happen in Christchurch, Wellington, Auckland, and us people out in the boondocks don't get to go to anything much. So Emma and the team put together some workshops that were going to reach the edges, and they were going to be run regionally. Well, now actually they're being run regionally, nationally, online. So and the other thing they did with that was they've recorded the videos and had somebody edit each workshop by getting the original footage of slideshows, putting the sound down, having the person's image there, and cutting out any extraneous stuff. And now they've got those workshops online, and they're there forever for members to access. So yeah, but I know Emma is interested in hearing from artists as well, so keep an eye on anything that's coming through from Drama New Zealand, because the connection with artists is huge there, whether it's technical, writing, directing, and I know some of you are connected with Drama New Zealand too, which is great.
Fantastic, thank you. Is anyone else, I can see there's some people who their faces have just started to join us. Hi Amy. Hi Amy, come in. Is there anyone else sitting there who would like to join in terms of just sharing some of your experiences, or if you have want to jump off anything else that we've been talking about here today, whether it's a positive experience you've had leaping into this online space, or if it's something that's filling you with dread or bar humbug, as we've heard. Does anyone else want to jump in?
I wouldn't mind speaking just briefly around. So my theatre company is Copland Theatre Company, and we make shows for children under 5. And all three of us, Mel Luckman and Hannah Wheeler and I, are real advocates of as little screen time as possible, and really celebrating being in the room with the little ones who we make the show for. So we were really, really, really challenged by suddenly needing to, or feeling as though we needed to still remain present online, but who was our content going to be for? And I personally, I've got a 1.5-year-old and have quite sort of actively kept her offline, but noticed as we were kind of venturing deeper and deeper into lockdown, it was sort of including her, which I enjoyed sometimes, and then other times I felt like I'd shared a little bit too much of my world. So we definitely have learnt a lot in regards to how we want to move forward in regards to our online content, even when we can get into the room with our younger audience. And that being that perhaps it's more sharing information and ideas and tools for parents, so that then they can recreate theatrical play experiences with their children, so that the content isn't so much like, here, come and sit and watch us do something. It's for the parents to watch and then be able to go and be in the moment with their children. So it'll be interesting, because we do hopefully have some time coming up with the three of us to try and figure out what that content will be, aiming to keep it very much inspired by our shows that we've already made, so that it can be resources that people use post-COVID as well as during COVID at any level. Yeah, but I really, really loved and have felt quite inspired by hearing that idea of reconnecting with or making connections internationally, diversifying, and also it being something, if people are struggling to go back out into the world, because it's a big thing to be isolated and then to return to public spaces. So it's a great thing to actually take into whatever it is that we're going to make. Like, if this is for people who the idea of going to the theatre is just going to be too much for a while. So thank you for that. That's really great.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is absolutely the best time, listening to what people are saying, and from some experiences I've had as well recently, this is the best time to be reaching out across the world. Through networks of people who are making work like you, and actually because people are open and ready and available to have conversations where otherwise they might not have been. So yeah, I think that's a really great takeaway. Marianne, have you got something you wanted to jump in with? Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, just on what you were saying, Amy, it is a difficult time, and coming back into the real world will be a bit more of a struggle maybe than we would like. So at Capital E, we have our National Theatre for Children, and we perform shows in theatres for under 7-year-olds, so kindergartens and early primary, to come and see. But at the moment we're struggling with some quite big issues, really. So the venues, by the new health and safety law, need to contact trace every single person in every single seat. We don't sell to parents, we sell to schools and blocks, and we can't legally get a child's name, and the school can't legally give it to us either. And so the Privacy Act and the Health and Safety Act are at loggerheads right now, because in the venue can't open its doors in level 1 unless it can contact trace, and in level 2. And yet the school, even if they did have an appetite for doing excursions outside of school, and kindergartens have an appetite to go on excursions outside of their play centre, they can't provide the information that the venues are requiring. So we're really in a stalemate there. So instead, like Sacha and what you've said, Amy, we focused a little bit more on the artists in recent weeks, and looking at the shows that we're making and exploring the theme of those shows more in a playful way with our audience. So we're working with lovely Jen MacArthur at the moment. Some of you may know her. And she's fascinated by the postal system and the art of letter writing, as opposed to the digital way of connecting with people. And so we've started making a show called The Lost Letter Office, which is quite endearing. But of course we can't make the show, so we've focused instead on putting challenges out to the public to decorate their letterboxes. And we're receiving photographs of decorated letterboxes. And we're going to make a little online web series of the letterboxes that we have images of that come in from the public, and have a mock Zoom meeting with each letterbox, and create a little dialogue between the letterboxes about, you know, how sad it is that all they seem to get these days is bills and invoices. They don't tend to get any letters or birthday cards, and they're waiting for the day when people will start using the postal system more and things like this. So yeah, we've been focusing on content, and we've been focusing on providing work for the actors that we did have on staff, keeping them on side, and getting them to work on research projects, and still getting some of our set and design stuff underway. There's lots we can do, but yeah, there's a limit to what you can do in these extraordinary times when your audience, on the whole, are mass gathering groups that come to see your work, or even if you do workshops with them. Quite often it's for people in groups that are more than 10. So yeah, that's us. But it's lovely to see you all and hear all these amazing ways we're working.
Can I just jump in there? Is that all right?
Yeah.
But Marianne, with the venue thing, we're working with a venue here that have said, as long as you as a business, which would be like a school, have got that information, they don't want the information of where our children come from, because we don't really want to tell them. But if there is an outbreak, it's easily accessible, and we can prove that, yeah, we do have that information. So council won't even accept that, or whoever owns the venue?
Oh, it's not council, it's conversations that have been happening at EVANS, which is all the venues nationally, and the non-venue EVANS as well.
Oh, so you're
and MB have been informed. We've written we wrote a letter to the ministers and things 2 weeks ago, sort of suggesting that, highlighting this issue and suggesting that actually if you seat each group in one block with a teacher's name, that teacher is the one that's contacted should the COVID outbreak occur. But until we get that in writing, like on a letterhead, say from MB, we can't go into. At the moment, there are some venues, not all, who are struggling to enable us to go to contract with them to rebook our tour because they are not fulfilling their health and safety obligations by not being able to tick the box that they have contact tracing sorted. Yeah.
Yeah, that's difficult.
Have you had a sense, Marianne, of the appetite for the schools to return to going to excursions? Should we go down to level 1, whatever, you know, in terms of who you'd normally, teachers that would normally book you?
Yeah, we have the relationship with the teachers. Yeah, look, not in the near distant future, that's for sure. It wouldn't be to at least level 1. Right. Certainly not in this current level. They are, a lot of the schools are okay about you going into schools as long as it's a small group. There have been some schools that won't even do assemblies. They're still doing virtual assemblies. And their kapa haka groups and things like this are being done in a different way, like with metre distances between each of the kids. So there are some kapa haka performers that are going in and tutoring that we know of. So yeah, excursions outside of school, I think unless there is a very foolproof RAMS that means all the teacher needs to do is tick a box, it's just another barrier really at the moment.
Is anyone else coming up against that particular issue in terms of your work later in the year? You're nodding, Tahi. Is there a project that you guys are?
I was responding to the sort of unknowns and anxieties. So even though, or the series of obstacles and barriers to accessing stuff, our kids are keen, the parents are scared. So I think that's going to be really a long tail to managing.
I think we're also waiting in Wellington to hear about when the theatres are, what the plan is with the theatres. I've got, shows on the go that will need to be going in August and don't know when they're happening and things like that. So I think it's still very much we're in that waiting period of just going, what's going to happen? And I'm confident that people want to come back to the theatre after so long, if not. Well, I'm optimistic. But
Yep. Sacha?
Yeah, we're just having a little trouble with things that you have like an enthusiastic teacher going, yeah, we'll get this happening next week. But then there's quite a delay with management sign-off. So we're meant to be going to schools next week. But yeah, it's just hard to prepare when you have to make sure the artists are available and all that kind of thing. When one person's going yes, but it is just taking a bit longer to get the full sign-off. So I guess we're just trying to be relatively agile and ready at short notice, but yeah, it's a little bit tricky in terms of being fair to the artists.
Yeah, Sam. Go ahead, Sam.
Just to that, Sacha, because we're similar in that we do like a lot of workshops in schools called Massive Making. I actually kind of made a decision yesterday that because we had a school that wanted us to go in next week. And I sort of wrote and I said, you know what, I think I want to tie-ho at the moment. I want to wait for 2 to 3 weeks until level 2 has settled in and we know the reality of that. And that's for both parties. That was for me and my co-tutor as well as the environment. So I've sort of said and he came back and actually said yes, because I think as far as I can see from all the schools that I've, because we've probably got like a dozen workshops on hold and all of them have come back and said, either we have to go to level 1 before we can go in, or term 3. And I think it depends on what or why. But yes, I just thought, actually, I don't want to send us in and vice versa while we still don't quite know. I figure in 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have a better sense of whether there's going to be a bit of a spike or if the numbers are going to go up again. And then I'll feel safer about scheduling stuff after that period of time. So I don't know if that's something. So I just decided to sort of, rather than wait for the school to tell me, I just thought, I think I want to wait for that. And we're doing the same with Massive Nui Ensemble. We're not going back into this space until we're doing another online one this Saturday, and then we'll have a fortnight, and then we'll go back into a big space together for our, you know, just for everyone's safety. Just because it's so unknown, you know, and I watched that thing about the second wave the other night, and I went, ooh, I just want to be careful for everyone.
Can I just say there too, Sam, don't hold off for too long, because kids need us in the schools at the moment. They need the arts, and the schools are really responding to having artists in schools in terms of what the kids and the teachers need from us at the moment as well. And if they need anything, it's an opportunity to express themselves through the arts, to work with artists. And if it means just changing the way that you're doing things, then maybe that's what it means, because this could drag on for a while. So you might be surprised, and it might take a couple of weeks, but I'm fortunate to have been asked to go into a school this week to work with every class, and just for an hour do a drama that is simply about what's just happened and looking forward. And the teachers want it, the kids want it, and if you can do it in a way that's safe, then. But I totally get that idea. We've sort of put everything on hold in terms of our after school classes for 2 weeks. We're not, except for one, the big class, but we're making it work in that space. But yeah, for everybody, don't hold off going into schools for too long, because they want it. They want the arts.
Absolutely. And I think, just picking up on what you both said there, and I'll get to you in 1 second, Jenny, but I've absolutely done what you've done, Sam. I've decided for myself I have to make a decision about what we're going to do. So we're not going to do any physical engagement with schools for all of this term. And we had a big festival planned for the school holidays, which we had to postpone, you know, as soon as lockdown came in. And I've cancelled that project and gone, okay, we're going to put our physical engagement with schools and young people to happen from term 3 onwards. Hopefully that will work. Otherwise, what I think is really interesting, and picking up on what you're saying, Juliet, is that actually there's been some fantastic discoveries about how to work with different groups of people in this online space. And I mean, I'm thinking, based on what I've heard today, actually we could be doing some really valuable work in schools with artists, but with artists in a class in the online space. And I think that's really interesting. I hadn't considered that before. I mean, we're doing participatory engagement, but that's actually quite an interesting thing to go into the school. So I think actually this discovery that's come out of this period is incredibly fruitful and really valuable for keeping the arts alive, which is the point that you're raising. But
there
Jenny,
are teachers in schools, sorry Jenny, there are teachers in schools who pre-COVID wouldn't have even entertained bringing a playwright into their room on a screen, or a dance teacher, or somebody who works in the technical field, or a director. They wouldn't have even entered. Now they will be absolutely open to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Jenny.
Yeah, just the thing that comes through in everything that everybody is saying, everything that everybody has contributed, you know, just the problem solving and the resourcefulness and the finding ways. alternative ways to do what we all love and need to do. But in my case, I work with schools, primary schools, putting on school productions, and I thought, oh well, that's probably it for the year. But there was one school who was in mid-rehearsal when we went into lockdown, and what they've decided to do is to go ahead with the production. They're postponing it till, they were going to be doing it this term, but they're postponing it till early next term. And what they're going to do is do a couple of nights of performances and have a sort of partial audience so that they can, you know, space them out. But they've been in touch with Playmarket, and Playmarket has given them dispensation to sell a video of the production to parents, which usually Playmarket isn't keen on that at all. But in this instance, in this circumstance, Playmarket is, I think, bending over backwards to help the show go on. So that's their solution, is to push ahead with production, record it, do a great video, and then have some people in the audience, but actually have a video recording that then goes out to the parents and families. So I just wanted to contribute that. There are people coming up with solutions.
We did a similar thing, Jenny. My show with 20 elderly was cancelled at the dress rehearsal because we didn't want anyone coming into retirement villages. And we did the same thing. We made a video, put the money into a video, and they were quite happy for that because it meant that extended family could see they were outside the country. So yeah, I think it's a really valid option as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. Now I'm just checking in on everyone's time. It's nearly 3:20. My family have come back from school and the dog is barking at the door. But how are we feeling about, do you want to keep going? Are you ready to wrap up? Where are we at, people? Anybody got a burning question that they'd like to ask? Or... Yes, hello, LJ.
Hi, kia ora everyone. I'm down in Hawke's Bay with Juliet, and I'm a voice coach and a director, but I've been having lots of Zoom chats with past students, adolescent students, you know, in their late teens, and I've been really enjoying these chats because they've been talking about what it feels like to them not seeing live theatre. Live theatre being such, especially drama students and people that are in full-time tertiary study in the arts, you know, how they're feeling a loss at that element of them not feeling they can learn at the moment because live theatre was so pivotal to, you know, to their studies. And what we've been doing, and I've only been having Zoom chats with, you know, 6 or 7 of them every so often, but really encouraging them to venture into this online world that everyone is opening up, or National Theatre Live, everyone is opening up these incredible resources that unless they had heaps of money to go to the movies and see them, or, you know, for students, suddenly seeing live work is really accessible. And so a lot of the time in our Zoom meetings, we've been having a lot of fun sort of, you know, finding out who's showing what, and then coming back and talking about what they've seen, just like we would do if we were in a lecture or chatting over coffee. And I think for our older students, that's really important, to feel that connection that, you know, what do we do if there's no live theatre for a year? You know, how are we actually going to manage? How are we going to study? How can we actually authentically critique stuff if we can't see it live? If the fourth wall is there, it feels like it's there, and we can't connect to performers, we can't hear them breathe, we can't see them sweat, you know. That's quite interesting. And from a personal perspective, I've been really fascinated with what their perceived fears, hopes and aspirations are as young people, you know, going around this and navigating around that. So yeah, I don't teach on Zoom. I'd be terrified of it, but I found it a really amazing free platform, and you know, these kids these young people really look forward to you know, especially when we're in level 4, our weekly sort of catch-ups, and, you know, and doing play readings. We all went to Play Market and all got copies of one play and spent a week reading it and to each other, and just because we could. So there was no teaching involved, but there was a sharing, and yeah, I found that really valuable. So I've loved this platform for this reason, I suppose. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, LJ.
Cool.
Anyone else want to jump in before we toodle off? I keep looking at Square's photo, and he looks like the board man, you know, bored man in the bottom. It's giving a very serious look. My eye keeps going to it. Tim. Hello, Tim. We're just going to say hello to you. So I see
hello.
You there. Hi, darling.
Thank you, everybody, especially our panelists. It's been a really interesting exercise. I've learned a lot, and I really, like a lot of you, a bit reticent at the beginning about being a live company and going online, but some of the rewards that our young people have had through our Zoom classes, which were all a trial, a bit like Juliet at the beginning, our parents were 3 weeks in credit at the end of term 1, so we gave them free classes, and we've been delighted to actually have paid classes for term 2, and we've actually taken on 9 new students in term 2, you know, out of nowhere, so it's actually phenomenal. We had a lovely letter of support from a mother of a gifted Asperger's teenager who has found his home with us. And she said that she's got 2 sons, a gifted Asperger's who come to our classes, and a really outgoing, vibrant, social brother. And she said that she found it amazing between the 2 boys. The gifted Asperger's actually has embraced the Zoom and the social technology, yet her outgoing social son has just, you know, come down and just been quiet at home in the lockdown. So so what you were saying, Sacha, about the diversity, you know, we just don't know how people are coping with this. It's quite new and exciting in terms of, here I was thinking as a negative, there's lots of positives to all of this as well too, so yeah. So thanks, panelists. Thanks, Lynne. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. That's terrific. I think you've really underlined a really important point that's come across from lots of people today about how being on this platform, we've all been forced inside, forced into our bubbles, but being on this platform has actually allowed us to connect with a lot more people, and a lot of people who we wouldn't normally connect with, and maybe allow people to be braver, to be more playful, and to be to express themselves more openly. And I love what LJ was saying about actually having opportunities to have great conversations with people. So yeah, I think I'm taking away lots of real positives and some ideas, sizzling with some ideas of things that I'd like to try. I'm wanting to get a matchmaking hat happening as quickly as possible. You know, and all sorts of things. I'm really inspired by what everyone's brought today, and also really appreciate the group that's come together and the questions that are arising. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next paper gathering. And yeah, I think if I can close off, I'd love to just close off now and say thank you so much for coming, and look forward to catching up with all of you at another time soon. Thank you. Thanks, panelists.